The year was 1862. The United States was a house divided, bleeding from the wounds of a brutal civil war. While the headlines were filled with massive battles like Shiloh and Bull Run, the fate of the nation was nearly decided not by an army, but by 22 men, a stolen train, and an 87-mile race against death. This is the true story of the Andrews Raiders, a group of Union spies who pulled off the most audacious heist in military history. It began in the shadows of a rainy midnight in Tennessee. James J. Andrews, a tall, enigmatic man with a beard as dark as his secrets, gathered a group of soldiers. These weren't just any soldiers. They were volunteers for a mission that smelled like a suicide pact. Their goal was to penetrate 200 miles deep into the heart of the Confederacy, steal a steam engine, and destroy the Western and Atlantic Railroad, the jugular vein of the South. If they succeeded, the Confederate stronghold of Chattanooga would fall, and the war might end years early. The men traveled in small groups, disguised as Southern civilians. They moved through mud and mountains, pretending to be Kentuckians looking to join the rebel army. They reached Marietta, Georgia, their nerves frayed but their resolve intact. On the morning of April 12, they boarded a passenger train pulled by a magnificent, powerful locomotive named the General. The moment of truth came at a station called Big Shanty. As the conductor, William Fuller, and
The moment of truth came at a station called Big Shanty. As the conductor, William Fuller, and the passengers stepped off for breakfast, Andrews gave the signal. In a flash, the Raiders uncoupled the passenger cars. Andrews leaped into the engineer's seat, pulled the throttle, and with a deafening roar of steam, the General surged forward. Thousands of Confederate soldiers, who were training just yards away, watched in stunned silence as their train vanished into the morning mist. They had been robbed in broad daylight. But the Union spies had underestimated one man, William Fuller. The young Confederate conductor didn't call for help. He simply started running. On foot, then on a hand-pumped rail car, and eventually by commandeering other trains, Fuller began a relentless pursuit. It was a high-speed chase in an era of iron and fire. As the Raiders sped north, they worked like demons. They stopped to tear up tracks, cut telegraph wires, and pile wooden ties on the rails to block their pursuer. But every time they looked back, they saw the black smoke of Fuller's engine on the horizon. Fuller was running his engine, the Texas, in reverse at nearly 60 miles per hour, a suicidal speed for the rickety tracks of the 19th century.
The chase became a psychological battle of wills. The Raiders tried to burn a covered bridge, hoping to create a wall of fire that would stop the pursuit. They set a boxcar ablaze and left it inside the wooden structure. But the heavy spring rains had soaked the timbers. The fire flickered and died. Fuller's train simply pushed the smoking car out of the way and kept coming. Hours passed. The General was screaming, its wood fuel running low and its water tanks nearly empty. The spies were exhausted, their faces blackened by soot, their eyes wide with the realization that the trap was closing. Near the town of Ringgold, Georgia, just miles from the safety of Union lines, the General gave a final wheezing gasp and ground to a halt. "Every man for himself," Andrews shouted. The Raiders scattered into the dense woods, but the Confederate cavalry was already on their heels. Within days, all 22 men were captured. They were thrown into a grim, rat-infested prison in Atlanta. Because they had operated in civilian clothes, they were not treated as soldiers. They were tried as spies. James Andrews and 7 of his bravest men were sent to the gallows.
However, the story did not end with their deaths. The sheer bravery of the mission stunned the American public. When the survivors were eventually released in a prisoner exchange, they were invited to the White House. There they were met by the Secretary of War and President Lincoln. To honor their incredible sacrifice,
the United States government created a new award for supreme valor, the Medal of Honor. The very first Medal of Honor in American history was pinned onto the chest of Jacob Parrott, one of the young soldiers who had been on that stolen train. Today, the general sits in a museum in Georgia, a silent iron witness to the day a handful of men almost changed the course of history with nothing but a stolen engine.
A reunited nation. This was not just a train robbery. It was the birth of American heroism as we know it. A story of iron, fire, and the unbreakable spirit of men who refused to believe in the word impossible.